Good afternoon. This is the regularly scheduled meeting for the Caldwell Hearing Examiner. It is Wednesday, August 26th, and it is 1:30. This is a public hearing, and my name is Sabrina Dershi, and I'll be serving as your hearing examiner today. My role is to hear quasi-judicial matters concerning specific land use, applications within the city of Caldwell. During this process, we'll accept oral public testimony from those who are present and have signed up the sign-up sheet to speak, and that is located at the front room. When you are called to testify, please approach the podium, speak clearly into the microphone, and state your full name and address for the record. All comments should be directed to myself, the hearing examiner, and should remain relevant to the application under consideration. The hearing will proceed as follows. City staff will present their report. Applicant or applicant's representative will then be given 10 minutes. We will then open the floor for public testimony, and then after public testimony, the applicant or applicant's representative will be given a 5-minute rebuttal. Once rebuttal has concluded, I will close the public hearing, and at that point, no further oral or written testimony will be accepted unless the hearing is formally reopened. And I ask that all participants treat each one with fairness and respect. Looks like we have a quiet group, so I'm not going to have to worry about that today. And required by Idaho State Code, we have to do written minutes of this hearing and will be recorded. So silence your cell phones, please. Okay. With that, let's take a look at our agenda. As far as the consent calendar, action item was to approve the July 16th hearing examiner minutes, which we've done. So we have no old business, so we will move on to our one item for new business. This is case number SUP 25-8. Applicant Marcel Lopez of Conger Group on behalf of Feedlot Caldwell LLC is requesting a special use permit for an outdoor storage of RVs and boats on a northeasterly 6 acres of a 12.61 acre parcel. This parcel is zoned M1 and is located at the southeast corner of the intersection between North 21st Avenue and Commercial Way. Thank you, Joe. Staff report, please.
Thank you, ma'am. So, just for the record, Joe Dodson, principal planner here at the City of Caldwell, 205 South 6th Avenue. Before you is SUP 25-08 for a special use permit on the subject property. As noted, this site is a 12.6 acre parcel total. It's zoned M1 right now. It's located near the southeast corner of the intersection of Commercial Way and Franklin. The proposed SUP is about 4.25 acres out of the 12.6. I'm not sure why the ad says 6 acres, but it's a little bit less than that when you actually measure out the area of the impacted boundary. Okay. Nearby uses include some commercial along Franklin 21st, industrial to the southwest and to the north and east, and then there's also multifamily residential and then vacant parcels. On the existing site, as noted, it's only about 4 acres out of the 12. There is an existing contractor's shop and storage yard on the site. As far as the applicant request before you, it is, again, for a special use permit to operate automotive storage outdoor. That's what it's listed as in the land use schedule. But more specifically, for boat and RV storage on the 4.25 acres out of the 12.6. And again, within the M1 zoning district. According to the submitted plans, the storage facility includes no more than 200 storage spaces, ranging in 2 different sizes from the site plan, 12 foot by 35 foot or 12 foot by 25 foot. All drive aisles are proposed to be paved, and each storage space is depicted as gravel, which are both consistent with code allowances. In addition, the applicant is proposing fencing surrounding the facility to secure it. They're also depicting landscaping along the embankment because the north boundary, there's actually quite a bit of height difference between this site and then the top where Commercial Way is, where the canal is. So all that green and everything, and even the gray that's shown, it's all embankment up to the canal there. They are showing some natural fescue there, as well as trees along the perimeter to buffer the site, both from the uses to the southwest that you can see on there, and then the existing contractor shop storage yard on the site. As noted within the staff report, additional trees are required along this boundary between the facility and the rest of the site. to meet the code requirement of 1 tree per 35 linear feet. As far as zoning is concerned, a special use permit is required for storage facilities within the M1 zoning district. And that is as of April of 2025, and it's 10-07-03 of Caldwell City Code. That's the land use schedule for the M1 zoning district. The point of requiring an SUP for storage facilities is typically for the purpose of ensuring adequate screening as well as separation between land uses. In addition, SUPs for these uses can look at hours of operation, the overall size of them, and any traffic impacts. As far as hours of operations, the narrative did not seem to depict any, but there's noted that there's just a kiosk to be utilized, not like a full-on office. So the assumption is that they'll be open or available for people to come and drop their vehicles off or pick them up 24 hours, which is fine. Code doesn't limit the hours of operation for these types of facilities, so staff did not make any find any issue with that. Let me see. Staff does find that if the applicant complies with all conditions of approval, the proposed use will be adequately screened, and that's just, again, making sure that the fencing is compliant with code as well as the required landscaping. Engineering and ITD both reviewed the proposed use and did not have any concerns with access or overall traffic impacts. Therefore, after review of all of the documents, staff finds that the proposed use should not cause any adverse impact to nearby residences or properties and is therefore a compatible use within this location. As far as public hearing process, it was notified per state statute. We did not receive any public comments, written or otherwise. The city departments, fire, mapping, and engineering reviewed it, and they provided conditions of approval and had no issues. As far as agency comments, ITD, Caldwell School District, and Black Canyon Irrigation District responded. ITD noted that they did not have any opposition and stated that RV storage facilities do not typically generate enough traffic volume to meet thresholds for a traffic impact study, nor necessitate any mitigation. Caldwell School District did not note any approval or opposition, as they typically don't, and then noted because it's a commercial use, they do not anticipate any impacts or minimal impacts to the school district. Black Canyon Irrigation District, because of the canal, did note some concerns in general of just staying away from the toe of the slope adjacent to the canal, and just asked that the applicant comply with all irrigation district requirements, which they will have to do. As far as site-specific conditions, there's a few that staff included, but they're just regarding landscaping, business licensing, some standard things. Nothing that staff would point out specifically as concerns. Therefore, if the hearing examiner approves of this SUP, we ask that you just make it subject to the findings of fact, conclusions of the law, and order of decision. And I will stand for any questions, or we can just go right to the applicant.
I did have one question for you. So I noticed that you mentioned the comp plan, and I'm assuming since it's M1 in the previous comp plan, it was meeting the comp plan, but then with the new comp plan update, it has it as a activity, or I forget what the designation is.
Mixed use.
Mixed use.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's zoned M1, and it's been zoned M1 for a long time.
Okay.
That technically, no, does not meet the overall new comprehensive plan that was adopted in February. But because the zoning has been in there so long, it's going to trump the comp plan pretty much across the board.
Okay.
I could use it as a guide in general, but because of its existing zoning, ultimately, there's not much I can do. And
Okay.
not much staff should do in those contexts, because zoning should prevail over the comp
Okay.
plan, as it does.
I just wanted you to explain it on the record.
No worries.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Okay. Would the applicant or applicant's representative like to come up, please? Name and address, sir.
You bet. Heath Clark, 251 East Front Street in Boise, representing the applicant, and Joe's got a very short presentation for me. And I don't know that there's a lot that I would add to what Joe had to say. Joe did a very nice job of describing everything, 200 stalls, about 5-ish acres of the site. There's a couple things that I would emphasize to kind of give you a little bit more context for the site, and largely related to the kind of isolated nature of it and the limited visibility and access that are associated with it. But as Joe mentioned, it is the current M1 zone. It has that historical use as a feed lot, and then there's the contractor shop that's to our south. But if you look at the site itself, this is on commercial looking east you can kind of get an idea of how much topography raise there is from the 21st and Commercial intersection, and the way that it kind of drops off to the southeast. As you look at the bottom, this is as you go forward on Commercial and you're just a little bit past our access, and looking down, what you can see is this is where our site would be. You can see the contractor's yard, and you can also see the industrial. So it's almost hidden, tucked away. And so from that perspective, this really is the most appropriate type of use, because it's really not dependent on that type of visibility. Also wanted to kind of show you what Joe was talking about in terms of that change in grade. So on the right, you can see Commercial Way, the level. We actually drop about 30 feet all the way down to the actual site itself. And so that area that Joe was showing with the vegetation that would be added and the area that we would be respecting with regard to the Notice Canal, you can see that all along there. And in fact, there's a lot of barrier that's already installed in connection with the prior feedlot use, and we anticipate that that would just stay there so that we wouldn't interfere with any of their operations. And then the last thing I would just show you is that on that bottom right picture where our driveway is, it really is kind of tucked away behind the Notice Canal. And as you go on Commercial, there's not an access to the freeway down there. So any traffic that's going to come is going to come from 21st and Commercial. You're not going to have traffic come in the other direction. So it's kind of an isolated pocket. You're going to go there for that reason and for really no other reason. And so with that, I don't think I'll belabor the point any further. Like I said, I think Joe did a very nice job. We are in agreement with the staff's evaluation of the special use standards. We're in agreement with the conditions of approval. We anticipate continuing to work with staff on the landscaping as conditioned. And the areas that may need that alternative compliance would probably be up by the canal. In working that out with the irrigation folks. And so we're fully aware of that, and we anticipate doing that with staff once we get to a more detailed plan.
Thank you, Heath.
Yeah.
Can we bring up the site plan? Because
Sure.
I had a few questions.
I don't know if I have a good one. Joe, can you bring
Joe,
up
I think
yours?
Joe has one.
Yeah.
So the canal is going to it's going to stay open.
Correct.
Okay. And what about a lot of those ponds out there for like mitigation that are existing in the feedlot? Is that portions of your property?
I think that might be just off of our property. Am
Oh,
I
okay.
Picturing that correctly? Yeah.
Is that off? Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So let's talk about, I guess, in the staff report, they notate there's some code compliance issues. Can
Yeah.
you kind of go through that and explain that to me in a little more detail?
Yeah, so a couple items that were noted. I think the first one was the weed mitigation, and we've had folks out there. We think that's handled.
Okay.
Marcel actually just sent me a picture of the site today with the weeds knocked down. So if it's not done, it's close to being finished.
Okay.
With regard to the business permitting, that's the tenant on the contractor's yard, and we brought it up with them, and that's also going to be handled. And
That's like the concrete,
it's
slabs and stuff
dry
like-
storage.
Oh,
yeah,
okay, okay.
yeah.
And that was my other follow-up. So that's the existing business, and that doesn't have a permit. So, but that's not part of this application.
That's correct. Now, it has a permit from a land use perspective. They just don't have a business permit.
Okay.
And that was an oversight. They weren't aware of the requirement, and that's underway.
Okay. And then it looked like there was notated in the staff where there's some issue of track outs and SWIFT. Like I'm assuming you guys will be taking care of that.
Already underway.
Okay, perfect.
The tenant down there has been addressing that as well.
Okay, wonderful. And then, so let's talk about, so there's a portion that you're going to be using. It's going to be all open parking, no covered. It's just going to be a parking lot.
It's
with
key, I'm sorry, Madam Hearing Examiner, not to
You're
jump
fine.
in. Too much coffee or something, I'm just too antsy. Yes, open, the main structure would be the kiosk that would allow folks to get in and out, but otherwise, and then we'd have the paved drive aisles with gravel for
Okay.
the actual parking stalls themselves.
Okay, so it'd be, okay, perfect. And as far as the landscaping, the reason why it's not meeting compliance is that you're worried about the canal, and you're okay with that condition that, to do an alternative compliance after you've coordinated with the irrigation company?
Yeah, that's correct. And
Okay.
we're also okay with the suggestion by staff of flipping the location of the fence.
Oh, okay.
And so essentially what
That's a good idea.
staff's point, and I think, and we think it's a good one, is that On the north side, the screening is essentially provided by the change in topography in the canal. And so swap it, put the screening on the south side, and, we don't
Okay.
see that as an issue. It's just the city's landscaping requirements are pretty extensive, and we have some topography constraints, and so that's where the only hesitation comes from. But as
Sure.
I mentioned, we're more than happy to work on an alternative compliance in the event that we can't make it work.
Great, that sounds great. And then what is the remaining portion? So obviously, we talked about the legal description. It's not quite 6 acres, so what is the remaining amount gonna be? Because obviously you just have a portion in your application right now.
I think what you might be referring to, Madam Hearing Examiner, is, so we have the portion that'll have the RV piece that
Right.
we're talking about tonight. Then we also have the dry concrete storage yard use that's kind of on the south. And then on the far west, as you're looking at this drawing, it's flex space buildings that'll be over there, as I understand it. So,
Okay.
is that about right, Marcel?
But
Yeah.
that's not part of the application
Not part of
today.
this application.
And the flex space is allowed in the M1, so will not need to come back, and
That's
that's why
correct.
they don't have it. Okay.
Yep.
I just wanted to
Yeah.
talk through it, so to make
Yeah,
sure.
see the context.
And then my final question, I saw that there was an apartment complex. You held a neighborhood meeting,
Mm-hmm.
didn't look like anyone's in attendance. Have you heard from them at all, or?
We actually did.
Okay.
Yeah, so we heard from them. Marcel and I were just talking about this. They submitted a letter directly to us, and we didn't realize it had gone to staff, hadn't not gone to staff until
Okay.
today. Very straightforward letter. It was, we would like to see shielded luminaries on the lights,
Okay.
which
You noted in your narrative, or Marcel did, okay?
Mm-hmm. Correct. And then the additional one was just monitoring hours of operation. And so in this case, because it's a self-storage type use, we don't anticipate that there won't be backup alarms. There won't be the kinds of things that generate a significant amount of noise. I think in terms of hours of use, I would just fall back to city code on
Okay.
that in terms of making sure that we address anything. I think it's between, 11 PM and 6 AM, I think is the city code standard. And obviously that's city code already. We would typically consider closure hours, but in this case, that hasn't been identified yet. So I think the appropriate thing to do at this stage would be to just adhere to city code in terms of the noise limitations.
But you didn't put any restrictions, Joe, on their condition of approval for access?
Madam Hearing Examiner, that's correct, no. Nothing
Okay.
about hours of operation or access. And just for further context, adjacent to those residential units with the contractor storage yard, we had required the buffer at that point. And so the images that Heath had shown before are a little older. That was before that fencing and buffer is already there. So there's a 6-foot fence along the south boundary and a 20-foot buffer with trees and
So there's a little
native
more
fescue. So
noise
there's a little bit more noise abatement there
mitigation?
and some tree coverage there already. And as those trees mature, it's just gonna get better. And then you add these trees, it'll just make the site overall much
Okay.
better.
So Heath, if there was complaints about noise, would that be something that you guys would take in consideration
Mm-hmm.
later on if needing to limit the hours at that time?
Yeah, we'd be
Okay.
happy to take that in. Again, we anticipate this will be a very quiet use. I think as
Sure.
Joe mentioned, even compared to the other industrial uses that are either just recently put in there, like you have the industrial park that's just to our southeast, and then you have another industrial park that's a little bit further to our southeast. This will be the quiet corner of this area, I anticipate. So, yeah, that shouldn't be an issue.
It'll be nice to see it cleaned up too.
Yes,
It's been an
absolutely.
eyesore for quite a while. Okay, I don't think I have any other questions. Heath, do you have anything else that you would like to close?
Nope, and
Add.
I don't need a rebuttal unless
No?
somebody appears in
No, I
the next
think
minute.
you're in good shape.
Okay.
And then Joe, do you have anything to add? Marcel, did you want to come up and discuss the project at all before I close the public hearing? Okay, great. All right, with that, I'll close the public hearing, and based on the staff report, findings, order of decision, and public testimony, I just heard I will approve SUP 2508. Okay, thank you. And I will close our public hearing. It is 1:49